So the one thing that we missed, the reason why I believe the login is not working, I can sign up, but I get an error when it calls request login. The thing that I think we're missing here in the index controller, when we're trying to call this login method, this is a passport method, and our index controller doesn't have a reference to passport. So we need to add a reference to the passport package in order to process logins. So this is needed for login. So I'll try this again, but I have a feeling this is the cause why I could register but not log in. Sorry, thank you. So line 3, the index controller. We're not going to be able to log somebody in if we're not referencing passport. So I'll try this again. We'll go back to register. Okay, we still got an issue. So that was not my problem. So again, our registration should have worked. If I refresh, I have another user. Well, maybe to help fix this, we're going to try our login post. We'll try our actual login form, and we'll see if that works. I have a feeling it won't, and then we'll need to make that one fix that should solve both problems. So let's see what we get. So we want a post method at the URL login. Actually, in this case, we don't need our usual callback. Instead, we're going to use passport to handle everything. We're going to call passport's authenticate method. And it has one parameter, which is the strategy. So are we using a local database? Are we using Google? Or what strategy are we using? In this case, we want to use a local strategy. So this will just use our existing database connection to try and authenticate against the user's collection. And then we set up 3 values. The first one is, if the login is successful, what URL do we take the user to? Well, we'll just take them to foods. We'll have a failure redirect. Where should we take them if the login isn't successful? Yeah, let's take them, run get request and redirect them to login to show the form again. And we can also set up a message property so we can print a message on top of the login form. I think we're going to have to adjust something else in order for this to work, but we'll try it. Sorry? Yep. Hope so, yes. Thank you. So we'll try the login. We'll see what we get. So I'll go to login. Oops. How to root.post. I think we could have to do this, but we shouldn't need our regular express handler when we're using Passport. But Express isn't liking this very much. Sorry. Oh, it's just a bracket problem. I apologize. This, again, goes down here. Sorry, the first parameter is the strategy, the second parameter is the options. So the bracket is to go at the bottom. Now we'll see if we can log in. Then we'll be on to our next problem. Okay. So same error with our login. So we did get a success back. It did validate properly in the database, but we're having an issue getting Passport to store that user. So we can see our strategy was successful. So we've included Passport, which we need. So notice here when we are authenticating, we don't even have to tell it to use the user model in here. We've already set that up in app.js. So our Passport initialize isn't very happy. What's it telling us? Passport.initialize. So there's something in our configuration that isn't quite right. So this is our exact message. we'll compare what we've got. Let's try that. I've done it this way before and it's worked, but you may be onto something, Dustin. So let's see what happens if we move that here. Definitely worth a try. It may be that things are just not in the right order. So let's see if I resend. So different error. What did we get before? So we're starting with the session. So here, initialize session. Put the roots after. So they've linked to the controller after the passport configuration. That's what this person did, and it seemed to work. Where have we linked to our user's controller? Oh, I think this is why. Yes, it is an order problem. We're linking in our user's controller here. So this code gets invoked. I think this may be the problem, but we're not configuring passport till after. So I think we may have to move the reference to the user controller after the passport configuration. Because this file's using passport and passport isn't set up at the time we're connecting it. That may be the issue. So I'm going to move my user controller reference. I'll show you the changes. Sorry, that's not right. It's this file. Our index controller is using passport. So I'm going to move this down here and move my database and passport connection above it. I don't know if that will work, but that's one possible cause. So the index controller declaration and path is after the database setup and passport configuration. Okay, yeah, that seemed to be the problem. So now I can log in this way. So I've moved my index controller and path to the index controller down and put the database connection and passport ahead of it because this controller is using passport. So we have to configure passport first. So I've moved the database right under this line here, under this express static. There's my database connection and passport. And I've moved my index controller reference down below. Dustin, good suggestion. You're on the right track. That it was code was correct, but an order of operations problem. So if our controller uses passport, we have to set passport up first before we can connect the controller in, or it doesn't have everything it needs to work properly. Now, if I go to login and put in an invalid login, it takes me back to the login page, which is correct, but there's no indication that my login is invalid. So we should probably use an alert up here to show an invalid message when it comes back here. So in my login get method, we're setting up this failure message. This actually stores in the session variable. So we can evaluate if there's any messages in the session variable, and if there is, we can print those out in red on the top of the view. So in here, we're going to first check the session for error messages to display. So our request object, the session lives inside the request object. So this is an array. It might be empty, or it may have one or more messages inside of it. So we're going to store any session messages in a local variable. And we'll clear out any messages. So we'll check the session. If we find any error messages, stick them in a local variable, and then we'll hand that data back to the view. Then we can write an if statement on our login page that will either show the user a message saying, please log in, or else it'll show them an invalid login message. So we can add an if statement to the top of the view, either showing them an instruction in blue or an error message in red. So at the top of our form, if we have any messages, so we'll print out one of these two divs, one in blue, one in red. When there are no messages, we'll show the blue alert. If we found messages in the session, we'll show the red alert. Okay, I think our code's right here. We'll have to modify something in the controller method. I think our syntax is okay here. So we're going to check the session variable. We're going to clear it out. And then we won't pass this. Let's try this for a minute. What if we pass in an empty? Okay. We'll come back to that part. Okay. So somehow what we're passing isn't quite right. I'll leave it for now. So now we want to deal with our food page. So our view is going to be public, but if our user is not logged in, this page should be read only. So the delete, add links should be gone. And the links to the edit the food, those should also just be plain text HTML. So in this view, we need a bunch of logic in the front end determining what the user should be able to see and do. So let's go to our food controller. So because we're checking for the user in here, we're going to need to include passport here. So we want to add passport to check user authentication. So when we load the food index, we also want to pass the user object. Passport is dotted in the session. And this is part of the request object. So if there's a user that passport is storing, we can access it with request.user. We're going to pass this to the view, and then we're going to need to write some if statements in our food index. Do we have a user, yes or no? If we do, show the links. If we don't, hide the links. So the page is still public, but then we can check in the food index. So we've linked to passport here. And then we're passing this, might be a null if someone's anonymous, otherwise it'll have information about that user in this request user object. So in my list of foods, we're going to check and see if we have a user here. So we'll want to wrap line 4 in an if statement here. So if we have a user, we'll show that link. Let's see what we get. So I'll go to login. It is not my day. So the same error we're getting from before. Bear with me for just a sec. I'm not sure why today I can't seem to pass values from our controller to the view. I'm just curious if that'll work. Okay, I don't know why I can't pass data today to my views. That works. We'll just try and print something out. Probably. Let's see, I think so. Did work in this case. So when I passed in a string, it worked okay. But I'll try it like that. Let's see. We're gonna have to log in again because my session gets destroyed every time I restart. Okay. So there's our object. Okay, let's see what happens now. Oops. This will be our last attempt for today. I should just be able to refer to the user object. Okay, we're going to call it a day. I won't waste any more of your time. I'll sort out my own problem. So we will want to finish this. We'll also want to add some logic to our navigation bar, but we're going to have the same issue until I figure out why our user object isn't being recognized properly. Because we'll want to hide, register, and log in. When someone logs in, we'll want to show their email address and log out in the nav bar. So we'll do that, and then once we sort that out, we'll implement maybe Google login as well with Passport. So we'll need another package for that.